Maybe let's start with, we know that recently, just fresh, still fresh in our minds, the passing of Chipa Masinga, who was a very important part, especially if you look at the class of 96, the players or the team that represented the country very well. Now, a lot was said during the memorial service, during the funeral, especially with regards to assisting former players. Where is Safa? Especially, I'm sure you remember very well, there was the issue of not having Phil Masinga's picture in the Hall of Fame. Maybe if you can explain to the public, where are you?
All of the matters which are raised during the funeral of Phil Masinga, we had a full workshop here at Safa House. And there we had present the Masters and Legends, we had the South African Football Players Union, we had SAFCA, the Coaches Association, Safa participated there, and many other individuals who came in their individual capacity, including women, former women players. We then formed, out of that workshop, a working group, and what are the issues that were raised there? We said, unlike many other professions, if you're a teacher or a lawyer, you start at 24, you retire at 65. So you have a 40-year career. When you play football, you start at 24, you retire at 35 or 34. So you have a 10-year career. And the issue then is, when you retire at 34, 35 in football, having a 10-year career as a professional, how do you manage your finances for the next 30 years to 65? And that is the key problem. And we've identified that, many of them identified that, and many of the players who do not run into trouble develop a second career. Either they become a coach, they go to university and get trained to a second career, but the second career is one of those options. But we also said, let's look at, can we create a fund where players can contribute and build the fund in days of challenges. And that working group will report back on Friday, and we'll see how we continue. But from the Safa side, we have invested millions into giving bursaries to many players.
Now, 2019 is a big year for Safa and football lovers. When you look at, there's the Women's World Cup coming up later on in the year, and now shortly there's the AFCON, where Bafana are almost there, needing a point to qualify for the AFCON. It's a big game they're playing next month against Libya. First of all, do you think that, or what are the expectations from Safa? Do you believe that Bafana will qualify?
Yes, absolutely. If you compare the two sets of players in Libya and Bafana, we have high-quality players that be able to deal with Libya on any day. But we know that it's going to be a difficult match. It's an away match. It's an environment where Libya will obviously have a lot of support. But we have a team good enough to deal with that challenge. I think overall we are very happy with 2019. You know, if you look at the number of 54 African countries, the country with the highest number of qualifications for World Cups is Nigeria with 4. The second country is South Africa with 3 qualifications for the World Cup. We had under-17 World Cup qualification, under-20, and Banyana.
Speaking of the future, Mr. President, we've heard about Vision 2022 for a couple of years now. Now, I think we're 3 years away from realizing that vision. Is that vision, according to the President, is it still on track?
It's not just on track. I think we've done extremely well. What did we say about Vision 2022? One, we said that when we started in 2013, that the ratio between qualified coaches and players are too big. We had one qualified coach, and the qualification was very low, a D license, with 200 players. We have said the ideal situation, if you look at Germany and Spain, one highly qualified coach for every 20 players. We said then we need 100,000 coaches. We are now nearing the end of between 30,000 and 45,000 coaches. So we are on track there.
Finally, Mr. President, as we end off, two questions. With regards to the plans to host the Women's World Cup, where are you there? And two, preparations for this year's World Cup, where are you in terms of planning?
Well, as far as this year's World Cup is concerned, 2019, we said it's very important that we try and keep the team in camp for prolonged periods, precisely because it's a national level, and then from there they'll go right down to play for the clubs in the province. So we had them in camp for many, many months. The second thing is to get quality opposition. And you know, we played the Winnie Mandela Challenge, and we played the Albertina Sisulu Challenge. And both those teams, the Netherlands and Sweden, are in the top 10 of women's football. In fact, the Netherlands are the European champions of women's football. So we played against the best teams from Europe. And they played very well. They could have beaten the Netherlands. They lost 2-1. And certainly they could have beaten Sweden. They played 0-0. The South African problem, we need 10 chances to score 1. But they were equal to both those teams. Now they go into the Cyprus Cup. And from the Cyprus Cup, they will play against the US. And then they go into the World Cup itself. Of course, we'll have a farewell match for them in Durban, where we'll have a final send-off and celebration. And Desiree will then announce a final squad to go to the World Cup. And then I think they will be ready for the World Cup. Now, in terms of our planning, we said, one, we must qualify for the 2019 World Cup. And two, we must try and make a bid for the 2023 World Cup, because that would be Banyana's second World Cup. And we think that they would have sufficient strength and quality to be a formidable force as a host nation in our country. We have written to FIFA. FIFA has just indicated that they will send the bid requirements, and we will see. Once we receive the bid requirements, they would probably send it towards the end of February or early March. And we will then have to discuss with the government, and if the government gives the go-ahead, we'll then make a bid for the Women's World Cup.